I just gotta say it. There are way too many handheld gaming PCs that are on the market right now. It is absolutely ridiculous the amount that are out that constantly come out that have at best incremental upgrades. We haven't really seen anything that does anything too massively crazy. And aside from that, the other thing I want to talk about is the weird obsession with the hate for the Nintendo Switch 2 that is continuing to go on, especially with people who are in Nintendo Switch 2 forums, groups, Reddit threads, and such, which is weird. If you don't like something, why are you in it? And the other thing I want to talk about, gaming right now, this generation that we have for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series has probably been one of the most underwhelming eras to go through as a gamer. And I'm saying that as someone who has gamed for 30 plus years. We're going to talk about that and more in this episode of Decked Up, a gaming and tech podcast. It's good to be back. Let's talk about it. What's up, everybody? Mekel Kasanova here, host of Decked Up, a gaming tech podcast, and we're back. I know it's been a while since our last true episode. I've basically been uploading, bonus episodes, reviews of tech or games before I decide to step back into the fray to talk about about the things that have been on my mind. It's not to say that I haven't thought about any of this stuff. I've actually been wanting to cover a lot of it. I just haven't, that whole thing where when you want to talk about something, but then you realize like, man, there's so many people talking about this right now, and you don't want to get drowned out. Or aside from there being a lot of people talking about it, it's just so much noise of people just regurgitating the same talking points. And that's kind of where I was for the longest. I was like, man, I don't really know how I want to approach this. Like, I kind of want to take a wait and see approach. Like one of my friends who's a fellow podcaster, Don Tony, he likes to say it, and I completely love the saying. I don't want to be first. I want to be correct. I want to be accurate. And with a lot of the stuff that's been going on within the space of tech and gaming, I've just gotten to a point where I'm like, all right, I sat around for a while, and now I can finally talk about this. So we're going to kickstart everything with the first topic that I want to talk about, which is none other than there are way too many gaming handheld PCs that are on the market, and they're not doing enough different to really warrant you wanting to pay another anywhere from $600 or more, like 600 plus to like over $1,000 for them. For at best, incremental upgrades, at worst, storage or RAM bumps. So let's talk about one that has come out recently. The Lenovo Legion Go S. This right here is the SteamOS version. I'm doing another review on it because I'm going to talk about the SteamOS and the Windows version and kind of give a bit of an update. But I still have my original Legion Go from day one that Lenovo sent to me. I got to keep. And I still have my ROG Ally, which I am planning to get rid of just because it's finally got stick drift on top of the micro SD card not working anymore. I'm just at this point when it comes to handheld PC gaming where, yes, there is no lack of choice of what you can play. You've got AAA games from modern era. You've got from yesteryear. You got retro. You've got emulation. I know I said a word, emulation. I don't give a fuck. But it's crazy how there's just no lack of choice when it comes to what to play on PC. But the interesting thing is with these handheld gaming PCs, outside of and I gotta give it its cigars. When I know we typically say, oh, you gotta give it its flowers. I'm just gonna say, no, we're gonna give it its cigars. The Steam Deck. We've only had one iterative update with that, which increased battery performance, the screen from LCD to OLED, refresh rate, and it overall is just the one that you need to go with, the Steam Deck OLED. You guys remember Steam Deck originally came out, 2022? And here we are in 2025, and we don't have a successor to it yet other than the update to the OLED model, which came out about a year and a half ago at the time of this recording, and is still one of the best handheld gaming PCs. Like, granted, I don't have a Steam Deck anymore just because I got tired of dealing with Linux at the time, trying to sideload stuff because I wanted to play, all this stuff from other launchers. But where I'm at now is I personally would love to go back to a Steam Deck, but right now with this right here, the Legion Go S, I'm kind of good with that because it's got Steam OS and better overall hardware, lesser quality screen. But I'm not one of those people that's like, everything's got to be OLED. I'm just not one of them. What I like about what Valve has done with the Steam Deck is you've literally had one and then an updated refresh with better specs overall and better components in the course of 4.5 years. What I don't like about every other company that's out, like let's take shots at it. At Asus, I got to talk about it. Okay, the ROG Ally came out, great device overall in my opinion. Horrible battery life, horrible. Even if you put the TDP at the lowest settings, it still gives you horrible battery life. And the fact that came out, you had all the issues with the micro SD card and it destroying micro SD cards, which is, I went through several of them getting destroyed from 1 terabyte to 512 gig. Going through that issue, then having the stick drift issue, and then, the overheating issues and all this other stuff. So then you had all that. And then they announced the ROG Ally X, which allegedly, and I have not used an ROG Ally X, but it is the definitive, iteration of the ROG Ally. More RAM, better battery performance, better overall performance, better cooling, no micro SD card issues. And I believe it has Hall effect sticks, which was weird. The original didn't have Hall effects. It had potentiometer sticks, but it had Hall effect triggers. So, okay. Within a year, they did that upgrade. And then now you've got the Xbox ROG Ally coming out and the Xbox ROG Ally X. And aside from the Xbox branding and the better ergonomics overall, I'm just at this point where I'm like, okay, now that's 2 additional models. And I get it. I get that this is a pivot because of the leaks from I don't know how many of you guys remember the Xbox leaks from like a year ago, where everything was leaked out as to what was happening with Microsoft. They were making a handheld that was originally supposed to be a streaming cloud wing. And I feel like because of the leaks, they had to pivot. And so they pivoted to working with ROG or Asus. And now you got that. But again, from 2023 to now, which is 2 years, right? 2.5 years. You now effectively have 4 ROG Ally devices in 2.5 years. Fuck. Why? That's too many. And especially at the price points that they're coming out at, $700 and then $800 or $900. And then you've got the upcoming ones that are going to be $800 and up to over $1,000. That's a lot. And then you've got MSI that had the Claw A1 flopped because it had the Intel integrated system. That flopped. Horrible performance. User experience just wasn't great. And then in less than 6 months, boom, here's the upgraded one. The Claw A1 Plus. Oh. And apparently the last 2 fixed a lot of the issues with the first one, which is crazy. If you go in like certain stores, Best Buy, Target and such, like they were trying to get rid of the Claw A1, right? That got 70% off. Almost picked it up myself, not gonna lie. But nonetheless, again, the issue is in literally less than a year, 3 different handheld gaming PCs from MSI. Still haven't got anything from Acer yet. I know they showcased it at CES this year, but hasn't come out yet. And we haven't gotten anything from Dell yet, which Alienware, they're going to drop something. It's just I think that the thing is just trying to figure out how to do it differently. And then, okay, let's look at Lenovo. The Legion Go came out, which I loved it. I loved everything about it. The removable Joy-Con, well, I'm just going to call them Joy-Cons, but the removable Joy-Cons, being able to use the right Joy-Con as a mouse, which you clearly know the Nintendo was inspired by that. They did it differently with the Switch 2, but nonetheless, it is what it is. So you have that. And then the big downfall for me with the Legion Go, the initial release, was the D-pad just sucked ass. It was fucking horrible. So horrible, just like absolutely horrible D-pad. And then not only was the D-pad bad, you also had the fact that the aspect ratio was low. It was weird, right? The that was just for like scaling and rendering. It was weird. It's a 2K screen too, and while it's a beautiful screen, there isn't a lot that you really want to take advantage of it. But I love the big trackpad that was on this, and just everything else was great. The other problem with it was it felt like Lenovo wasn't really trying to support it that much with like updates and everything like that. Updates for CPU, graphics card and everything like that was just so slow, and they were whisper quiet on it. And I'm assuming that is just because of how the initial negative responses from the media and outlets and content creators was just like, it's a great device with the exception of how poorly it runs. And they over time fixed it. It runs great now. I remember when you couldn't launch Legion Space to save your life, or it just took forever. There was a lot of unresponsiveness with it. A lot of games that ran great on the ROG Ally just could not run. And then there was that whole conversation, get the ROG Ally instead of getting the Lenovo Legion Go. Fast forward a couple months, they fixed that. And then you get the leaks and then the announcement that they are making the ROG, well, not the ROG, but the Legion Go S, which dropped this year. You had the Legion Go S, the Windows one, which came out first, which I already did a review on that. And then you had the Legion Go S SteamOS version, which is what a lot of people are saying they'd rather have that than Steam Deck because it's got better components, like more RAM, better processor and everything than the Steam Deck. So a lot of games just run better on it. But then you also had the issues with the Z1 versions instead of Z1 Extreme, or it was a Z2 instead of Z2 Extreme. Underpowered, underperforming handheld. And then they literally released two different versions of the Steam OS and the Windows version, the Z2 to Z2 Extreme, right? So you had that. So within 2.5 years, that's already that's four devices. And these aren't cheap. And then you also have to add into the fact that the Legion Go 2 is coming at the end of this year. So that's 5 devices, and that has 2 different models or adoptions. But that is 5 devices in 2.5 years. We're getting too many of them. And they're not doing enough different from one another. And I'm not going to sit here and say that, companies like Neo and such are any better. I know that they drop a new device every 2 to 3 months. Kickstarter, boom, here it is. But, and it's so they're niche in the grander scheme of things. Even they were doing this before the big boys got into the scene. But nonetheless, it is still too many that they're putting out, especially as expensive as they are. And I've always talked about my issue with Neo and all the other ones, right? Is the fact that the support, I don't really feel like that they support their devices really after that long after launch, because they're already moving on to the next one. I could be wrong on that. And if I am open to being corrected. But nonetheless, there's just too many devices just dropping from them. In 1 year, you can have like 10 different handheld gaming PCs drop. They're all different, but it's too many. And what I feel like, or rather what I think, or ascertaining, is that these companies, they saw how successful the Steam Deck was when everyone said it was not going to be great. And they saw how successful it was, and they hopped on it, and they were like, okay, we can make something better. And they do make things that are quasi better, but they also don't, because they are more in the hardware. Let's keep making more and more and more and more and more hardware. They are assuming that people are going to constantly buy these new updates as they come. I have 3 handheld gaming PCs. I have no desire outside of the Legion Go 2 of getting another one. It's just not appealing to me, especially when I've got a gaming laptop and 2 gaming desktops, well, technically 3, right? So I could literally just sit here and play it, or stream from my gaming desktop to my Legion Go S and just be comfortable, because the ergonomics on this is so good. But nonetheless, I'm not getting enough incentive. Oh yeah, performance is this percentage better. The battery life is this percentage better. But yeah, but these are still costing a grip to get. I'm not incentivized to upgrade. And I don't feel like or think or ascertain that many consumers are wanting to do this either. And I'm not saying like you're not getting value, because you get value on things that you find valuable. For a lot of tech heads, a lot of us want the newest thing to talk about, the test and all that. I'm a tech head, but I'm also a frugal tech head. It has to be something substantial for me to want to make that kind of a leap. And I'm not seeing it. I'm just not seeing it at all. With the Legion Go 2, yes. With Legion Go S, SteamOS version, yes. Those made sense to me as a massive improvement over the Legion Go 1 and also a massive improvement over the Steam Deck. That made sense to me. But everything else has just been so iterative at these expensive costs that I'm just like, I don't see value in it. And I'm noticing you're not seeing so many companies jump into the fray immediately. Like Acer, why haven't we gotten a release date for the Predator handheld? I think because they're reading the market and people are not hopping out there to buy new gaming handheld PCs, especially when people are more content with just, let's just get a Steam Deck. Then you also have Alienware. They haven't dropped anything yet. They teased it well before Steam Deck came out back in 2020. And there's been talk about it. And I know personally, because I work with a lot of folks there, and it's just for them, they haven't put it out there. And it more than likely is due to reading the market. People are not adapting to handheld gaming PCs at the rate that they thought they would, considering how well the Steam Deck did. And the main reason the Steam Deck has done so well is ease of use. Now, coming from a console gaming experience to the Steam Deck, initially, when the Steam Deck first came out, it was rough. It was rough. There's so many issues with trying to get games to run compatibility, and companies weren't really making games initially with the Steam Deck in mind. Some were, Square Enix was. And so, yeah, it was just not the most optimized experience. But now, picking up a Steam Deck is like picking up a Nintendo Switch. You pick it up, sign in, go to the store, download games, whatever, tinker here and there. For the casual user, it is easy as opposed to a Windows handheld, So I really think a lot of these companies are just like, hey, not enough is different to warrant hopping out there and just throwing hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars towards this. It's not economical. And so I'm thinking we're going to start seeing slower and slower updates or revisions or newer entries from companies as time goes on. I want to say one of the things I love about what Valve said as far as to why they haven't made a Steam Deck 2 is there's no need for it. The upgrade to Steam Deck OLED has been more than enough for a lot of people. And I think it's just because the technology hasn't gotten to where they want for a mobile device for it to warrant jumping to make a successor. So, I mean, Steam Deck 2, I could see us getting one maybe next year, summer. I could definitely see that. But other than that, I don't see them making a successor, and I see all these other companies slowing down because the hype is gone. That window where everyone's like, oh, I need a handheld gaming PC is gone. And a lot of that also is due to the Switch 2 being out, which offers a lot of better performance on a lot of games that you can play on the Steam Deck and also on Switch. Not everything. There's a higher percentage of games that just run better on Steam Deck just overall, just because of PC and lack of having to restrain it due to consoles. But, look at games like Hogwarts Legacy. They run better with better resolution on a Nintendo Switch 2 as opposed to a Steam Deck. But that's my thoughts. Do you think that there are too many handheld gaming PCs on the market? Let's have that conversation. Let's talk about it. All right, moving on to the next topic I want to talk about, which is the Nintendo Switch 2 hate, which I had to reach around and grab it. I got it in my custom Play Vital case. Shout out to them for sending this over for review. Nintendo Switch 2 basically gave us everything that we have been wanting in the original Nintendo Switch, which was a massive performance and graphical update so games don't look so substantially worse than PlayStation, Xbox, and PC counterparts. And we got that. But for some reason, a lot of people hate the Switch 2. I mean, obviously, Digital Foundry is playing a substantial role in the hate towards it. not intentionally, but you have to look at, there are certain people that are within this space. As I spoke earlier about, there are those of us that are tech heads who like the newest and latest and greatest tech. And the issue with Digital Foundry is that they love the latest and greatest tech. They like to talk about things from a technical perspective. But if you haven't noticed, when did they ever really talk about how fun a game is? They talk more about the digital aspect, like not digital, but the technical aspects of these, how these games run, how this tech performs and all this. And you'll see a lot of people in the same vein that you have so many content creators that have copied Marquez Brownlee or MKBHD over the last decade and a half. You have a lot of people, content creators that have popped up that are doing the exact same thing that Digital Foundry does, right? Let's look at, and this is no shots fired, but you look at Steam Deck HQ, right? What do? They basically talk about performance. Their reviews are talking about performance. This is very similar to Digital Foundry. I think they have a team now. I remember when they were just one person, but it's the same thing. And then you look at a lot of the others that come out, they talk about the technical stuff so much, this tech, the performance, all this. And I'm over here, which is why I backed off a lot of things. And also, I got sick of the fucking Steam Deck content creators. But anyway, I looked at this whole thing and I'm like, none of you guys really talk about these games fun. And when I realized, especially when I started looking at a lot of these people that I have, these content creators and outlets that I have friends on the Steam friends list, and I look at their play history for the games that they're covering, and I'm noticing they really just spend more time. Oh, I play 20 minutes to an hour, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours tops to test this, and I never touched it again. And this is something that's within the content space. A lot of these people pick up these games, they play them for a bit, they never touch them again. That's how you have so many people that have these gaming walls. Now, granted, not everyone who has a gaming wall hasn't played all their games. I'm not saying all police, calm down. But I'm just saying this. A lot of people just play these games to do a technical analysis and never touch them again. And because of that level of approach and the cult of personality behind when you have people that have large followings and people follow, a lot of people just want to be followers, right? They just regurgitate what these folks say. And there's nothing beyond that. And so you have a lot of people that will pick up the newest game, but they're not really playing it to have fun with it. They're playing it, let me talk about how this performs, and that's it. Is the fucking game fun? That's what I want to know. It's the shit fun to play? Yes? No? Maybe. But anyways, that's some of the things I can't stand about, discourse in gaming now. And maybe this is because I grew up in a different time when we had game magazines that talked about how fun games were, how you could just rent a game from Blockbuster, or you have kids at the playground, or if you're in high school and you had gaming clubs and all that. This is a different era. But I talk about all this to say, bring this all back to the Switch 2 talk. There's a lot of people that got the Switch 2. I don't know what they were expecting, especially if you go into the Switch 2 Facebook group or the Switch 2 Reddit subreddit. I understood the general ignorance when people got the Steam Deck and they had to deal with Linux, SteamOS, aka Linux. I understood that. I don't understand people who bought the Switch 2 and don't understand jack all about it. You have people that absolutely have no clue what they're doing. And then they're complaining about shit that should be common knowledge or is easily understood with a Google search, but that could be asking too much. Nonetheless, you've got those types. And then you got the people that just absolutely hate Nintendo, right? Ever since the price reveal, people have been angry about the price. How could they charge so much for it? It's not even that much. Even though if you look at it from a technical aspect of the tech that's in components that are within it is not going to be cheap, especially if you're trying to hit 1080p with HDR and variable refresh rate with DLSS support on this handheld device, playing it portably, you're not going to get under 500. And then when it's docked 4K 60 HDR with the capability of VR, other components such as the video broadcast functionality built into it because Nintendo worked with NVIDIA on the designing and development of this console. It is weird, the ignorance there. and just fake outrage, rage bait, clickbaiting to get people. It's interesting. Someone, my friend, Gaming Chick, she actually sent this to me. There's a meme where it's like, how to become a successful YouTube creator. Step 1, take a picture of Mario. Step 2, take his smile, crop it, flip it upside down. And then step 3, say, how could Nintendo did this, and that equals you being successful. I don't understand, and maybe it's just because I'm older. I do not understand people who spend so much time focusing on things that they don't like. Like, I've said it before, the easiest way to take out, or not really take out, but to course correct a lot of these companies with their practices, their business practices, especially when it comes to pricing and whatnot, is to vote with your wallet. Stop buying the shit. Stop buying the game. Stop buying the DLC. Stop buying the microtransactions. Stop paying for the hardware. If gamers really stood on business about what they actually dislike, then we would not see these companies keep succeeding. You don't like the price of Switch 2 games being, well, some of them, first party being $80. Stop buying the games. You don't like the price of Switch 2 being $500 with Mario Kart 8 or $450 without it. Stop buying it. The same fucking hypocritical content creators that say that they weren't going to buy the Switch 2 and they literally bought it because they wanted it, because they're fucking clowns. They bought it because they wanted it, such as Dreamcast guy, and they bought it for views. It's just how the game is played. So as a content creator, I see the bullshit because I understand. I've been in Discord groups with these people of how they can manipulate viewers to either sub, to watch this, click through rate, all this stuff. I understand that. What I don't understand is people who are the consumers who, if you're not going to buy it, don't buy it. And if you're not going to buy it, why are you still talking about it? Why do you keep going on these forums? Why do you keep going in these groups to talk about how much you hate this thing? That's like, and this might be an extreme example, but to me, that's like, I broke up with my ex and it's been years since we were together, and I'm still talking about how horrible that they were. Or this girl has a red flag in all these areas. I didn't choose to pursue anything with her, but I'm going to keep talking about how bad she is and all these, like the red pill nonsense. To me, I don't understand people to spend all that time on things that they don't enjoy or they don't like. If you can affect change on it, do so. If not, shut the fuck up and move on with your fucking day. That's my opinion. All the Switch 2 hate. It's the most successful selling console of all time in the launch window. And there's still all these narratives about how horrible it is. For content creators, it's because it puts money in their pockets to clickbait. For consumers, I don't understand why the fuck y'all are talking about something you don't even like, to be honest. So it's a mystery to me. But yeah, I don't get it. And then I guess moving on to the last topic I want to touch on is the current iteration of gaming. The way gaming is now. This generation, PlayStation and Xbox. I've said it many times on this platform, on this podcast, in YouTube videos, on social media. PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series should have been delayed 2-3 years. They should not have come out when they did 2020, fall of 2020. It shouldn't have come out then. You came out during the height of the pandemic, when people lost money, they couldn't get these consoles. That's when we dropped this concept. Right? People don't have jobs. They didn't have money to get it, so they put it out there anyway. And then, especially when it came to the PlayStation 5, it took people 2.5 to 3 years, 3.5 years to be able to find a PlayStation 5. And then it comes out about 3 to 4 years into the console's life cycle. The PlayStation 6 is where their focus is now. So it's like, what was the point of the PlayStation 5? It made no sense whatsoever to drop that console when nobody really, what are the exclusives to the PlayStation? Xbox Series doesn't really have any exclusives, because if it's not on PC, it's going to PlayStation. So Xbox, I get, you're basically buying into the Xbox ecosystem and the services, because Xbox, and I've done a podcast on that, breaking that down, Xbox is more of a service brand at this point. It's not really a hardware focus. But then the same folks making fun of Xbox for doing it are being completely whisper quiet on the fact that PlayStation has also echoed the same sentiments and are essentially going the same route because PlayStation games have gone to PC. So, that being said, PlayStation 5. At this point, what are the real exclusives for PlayStation 5? Games that aren't current. And I say this because you've had a few exclusives. Returnal, Ratchet and Clank, into the Ratchet and Clank game, Blue Point's Demon Souls remake. But with the exception of Demon Souls, everything else has gone to PC. And then you've got a ton of PlayStation 4 games that got ported to the PlayStation 5 that got upgrades in performance and graphics. I think more so than any console generation before, the PlayStation 5 has been the generation of re-releases and updated games from last generation. And I barely play my PlayStations. I got a PlayStation 5 Pro, I've got a PlayStation 5, I've got the digital edition. I don't really play my PlayStation outside of when I fire up Street Fighter 6 to stream on TikTok, which if you haven't already followed me up on TikTok, I don't have an incentive. There's nothing that really compels me to play on it. You know, God of War is not really exclusive. It's also on PC. I'd rather play it on PC with better performance. Final Fantasy VII Remake was a time exclusive, just like Final Fantasy 16 was. Most Square Enix titles were time exclusive. Really, the only reason that the PlayStation 4 even won last generation is because PlayStation, or Sony rather, paid for so many exclusives and timed exclusives, so they wouldn't go to other platforms. That's how they beat out Xbox and Xbox's poor marketing due to dot metrics. But, you know, I just feel like this generation has just made no sense to me. And now you have the Nintendo Switch 2, which I don't even count the Nintendo Switch as part of the same console generation as the Xbox Series S and X and then the PlayStation 5. And then let's talk about that, the Series X and Series S. A lot of people hated the Series S. They said that was stupid. It was holding the Xbox back. Then you come to understand as time has gone on, but that the Series S being mandatory for these companies to be able to make these games run on helps it be ported over to the Switch 2. It also helps with the games making it over to handheld gaming PCs because of the architecture of the Xbox Series being so close to PC architecture. It makes these games just better optimized overall. There's that baseline, and then you can push it up higher when you've got the Series X or you got PC. It was a necessary evil, I guess you could say. And, you know, as a parent, I have kids that game, right? Game Pass has been great. I know a lot of people hate it because they're like, oh, you don't own your games. I keep hearing the narrative of save video games, you don't own games and all this other stuff. And I think about it. And when we're in an era where people, especially when it comes to shopping habits, people pay more for digital stuff. They're more willing to pay for digital than physical. And they are more willing to buy something just to talk about it than to actually experience it. It's that voyeuristic FOMO that we're in this current era. Do you really care? And I'm not saying that we should not care about physical media and the preservation of video games or just digital media in general. And I understand that there's valid arguments for the fact that we don't own stuff like we used to. You know, stuff that you buy digitally can be revoked because you're essentially getting a license and key. I understand that. But at the same time, a lot of people that are crying or making all this negative content about it are the same ones who buy into why it still exists. They fund it. They buy all these digital stuff. So it is a hypocritical stance and argument, and is counterproductive to any progress or change. If we want physical media to stay around, we need to stop buying digital. We need to stop it. Just like the whole game key card controversy with Nintendo, which I think a lot of that can be summed up to the fact that a lot of these companies didn't get the dev kits in time to be able to port their games over to a standard cart. And on top of that, I think a lot of these companies also may not want to spend the extra money to compress everything down to be able to run on a Switch 2 game cart. It's a strong possibility for that. There's so many different variables that go into all of this that I think it's hard for the everyday consumer gamer to even really know where to even start on any of these issues, because social media, especially TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube and YouTube Shorts now, it just doesn't help because there's so much information thrown at you. And I think a lot of us, especially if you are a working class adult that you have bills to pay, you don't have time to be that invested in all this. Or if you are a parent like myself, I've got kids, I've got 3 daughters, and now I got a son on the way. You don't have the time to really care about all that. I miss the day, and I'll be honest, I miss the days when I could pop a cartridge in the console and just play it, or pop a disc in, and everything's right there. But the reality is, and it's something that I don't think people are really truly grasping their mind around, just because time is flowing so fast at this point, or it's perceived to be. You can think about observer theory, right? We have been in this era of discs being quote unquote game keys, or DRM discs, technically, for 20 years. For 20 years, we've been dealing with this. I know a lot of us, we think 20 years ago, we're thinking N4 and original PlayStation. No. 20 years ago. It started with the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 3. And technically, if you want to go further into the weeds of it, this has been a standard for PC gaming for decades. So my stance is pick something to care about and go from there. You can't care about everything. You can't fight every single battle. If you want to stop the direction that digital gaming is going, stop buying it. You want companies to start doing practices like game key cards. At least it's not a code in a box like we got the original Switch. But what a lot of people also fail to realize is there's a lot of games that we bought during the Wii and Wii U era, 3DS and DS era, as well as the 360 and PlayStation 3 era. You can still download the content off of their servers, off of their storefronts. They haven't gone anywhere. You can't buy new games, but it's still there. And that's 20 years. It's 20 years of stuff that's still there. How long that's going to keep going, I don't know. But yeah, that's my thoughts on everything. That's my thoughts. It is a controversial stance I have on a lot of this. I understand that because it's not the norm. This is not the same clickbait bullshit that you typically would find on every other content creator that's out there or podcaster. But I'm not trying to clickbait you. I'm just speaking on how I view all of this. And yeah, there are too many handheld gaming PCs out there. There are too many and they're too expensive. Nintendo Switch 2 hate for me makes no sense. It's stupid. There are things that are legitimate to be mad about, game key cards, optimizations, but a lot of it is just anti-Nintendo sentiment that a lot of people have. And there are too many content creators out here and outlets that care more about how something runs and the technical aspects than actually is the game fucking fun. So yeah, that's all I got. If there's anything you guys think, any commentary whatsoever, please leave a comment, and share the show around. Share it around. That would be greatly appreciated. But other than that, that's this episode of Decked Up a Gaming Tech Podcast. Thank you for taking time to experience this. And that being said, see you guys on the next episode. Hopefully it's not going to be another month or 2 months.